Hello and welcome to another amazing episode of Reboot. Before we get into today's topic, because this is a really tricky one, I want to make something very clear. Neither one of us are endorsing, condoning, promoting, or even just saying that it's okay to have sex with anyone under the age of consent. We are also under no circumstances making it or saying that it's okay to force your sexual desire upon another person. All of that is an absolute crime. So before we go into this discussion, please don't go over there. We are just trying to look at this discussion because it has been on the internet for a few days, and when I did some research, this question has come up for the past decade. Many people have asked this question. There's been research how to deal with pedophilia. And should pedophiles be ostracized and treated like they're zombies, like there's something severely wrong with them? And the people who are proponents of this question say maybe not, because it is just thoughts like any other thought. If you have any inclination, if you have homosexual inclinations, if you have inclinations of any other kind of, as we call it, kink or deviation from the normal societal heterosexual behavior, those are just thoughts in your head. Whatever thoughts you act out, if they fall under the ambit of a crime, that is a crime. There is no discussion about that. So we are just looking at the psychological and the societal and other perspectives of this question. Dennis, would you like to say something? Because then I would like to go into a completely different, I'd like to approach this from the direction of age of consent. But your thoughts before we start on that, Dennis.
Yeah, it's just a really interesting topic, and I appreciate the way that you set this up, because we're not the last thing we're trying to do is cause anybody to be re-victimized if you have been somebody that was treated without respect during your childhood, and that's just how I'm going to refer to it. So I appreciate what you said, FQ. Yes, it's a really interesting topic, and I'll tell you. So just so people know where I'm coming from, even as a psychologist, when I see that people are actually, I think the context is based on an article or a TED talk that's kind of circulating right now about whether or not pedophilia is basically a sexual inclination or a choice, that sort of thing, or if it's if it's inherent, something that people are born with, and what this is going to do is it's going to bring up the topic of the LGBTQ community, because this is what this person on this TED Talk has said, is that it's really no different than just another, like, it's LGBTQX, and that this is part of that X or the plus part. So I think, thank you for saying that. We're going to try to handle this with kid gloves, because it is a sensitive topic. But I am going to come right out and just say right now, it's just dead ass fucking wrong. Period. End of discussion. So I am biased where this is concerned, even from a psychology perspective. So, but I think it is something that we need to talk about, and I think that the discussion it can be handled in a healthy way, in that we're looking to actually protect children worldwide, and so I think that's a healthy perspective that we're trying to take this from. So I would just ask that please don't, anybody that wants to comment, please don't put anything like joking, or it's a serious topic. Let's just give it the respect it's due. So thank you.
Absolutely. The very first comment, I'd like to touch it right here. It's fantastic, and it says, whoever says that pedophilia is a type of sexual orientation should have been provided their own should be providing their own children to the pedophiles. You know what? Very well said. If it's okay for you to do it to somebody else's child, then it must be okay. And again, it is not okay. This is just posing an argument to those who try to take this argument. But anyways, another thing, Dennis, you just mentioned LGBT. The thing is, there was a time when LGBT or homosexual or other sexual deviation was treated as something like a crime, like a mental disorder. You go back only 40, 50 years, homosexuals being given electric shocks in America, in Europe. to cure them of this disease. Madness,
not even that long ago. Yeah, not even
that long
ago.
Yeah, not even that exactly. Not even that long ago. Till like 60s or the 70s. And the discussion about homosexuality only started 30 odd years ago, where it really became an open discussion.
I don't know. I don't know. I just know that when I went through university in my training to become a psychologist, it was it was in our books, and it was listed. It was that we were told, like, hey, the new version is coming out, but this is it is listed as a disorder, and it was listed as a disorder. Things change, things evolve over time, and I think anytime that we're not comfortable with something, we I think anytime we're not comfortable with something, we take and we try to figure it out and stuff. And so, I don't know. It's a very difficult topic. I am very conflicted about it. My personal belief is that it is not a sexual inclination. I mean, I guess it is a sexual inclination. I don't know. I don't really know how to feel about this. I think it's a very interesting topic. And while you're kind of working on your equipment, I'm going to share my screen just to show everybody where exactly we're getting our information from, because this is actually really important to know.
Is this better, Dennis? Is this one better?
That is much better. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, much better. So here we go. Here's what we're talking about is there's a TEDx speaker that argued that pedophilia should be accepted as an unchangeable sexual orientation. And I do want to go out and say, because we don't have time to play it, but she does come out and say that, you just can't act on it. It's one thing to have these thoughts and these feelings. You just can't act on it, because when you act on it, that's, that's when it becomes bad. So what you can see here is, according to current research, pedophilia is an unchangeable sexual orientation. Just like, for example, heterosexuality. No one chooses to be a pedophile. No one can cease being one. The difference between pedophilia and other sexual orientations is that living out this sexual orientation will live in disaster. Listen, as far as it being an orientation, I don't know. I don't even really. I'm having a difficult time wrapping my mind around this whole concept, truthfully.
Okay, now I'm also confused which way to go, because you know what, she does have a point. Now, a lot of times, let's go beyond the sexual sexual aspect of it. Many times we have thoughts of doing things which are illegal, which are crimes. Like I'm sure you have and I have thoughts about, I'm going to beat this person up. I want to hurt this person, kill somebody, God forbid. Now, those are thoughts that flash through your mind. Doesn't mean that you actually go and realize those thoughts. So if you realize that thought, it would be a crime. I'm going to go into another area since we're talking about sex. The BDSM community, the bondage, domination, submission community, the whole 50 Shades of Grey thing going on. Now, it has suddenly become consensual and okay. And if you go over the centuries, in Japan, bondage, that's where it really originated, perfectly all right. Scandinavia, it's been going on for a long time. United States just really woke up to it with 50 Shades of Grey and whatever, darker. So it's really about slavery. It's about, slavery. And we've had cases in the US of A where young girls have unfortunately been kidnapped, kept as sex slaves.
Sure.
That was a crime because the second party did not consent to it or agree to it. But in case it is consensual, then suddenly this kink, I'm sorry, we're really trying to deal with this sensitively, don't want to offend anybody. This kink or deviation becomes all right, it's a personal choice. Now, I was having a discussion a little while ago with a friend, in fact, Maria, who was with us last night, and she said something very interesting. A lot of people would justify that the child wanted it. So she said, what if an 11-year-old girl says, I'm okay with it, should it be okay with it? Should it be all right? And that's where the age of consent comes in. And many countries have done a fantastic job at passing laws that what is the age of sexual consent. Now here's, Dennis, I want you to take over, and I want to just leave this bloody thought here, that I was looking at a list of countries ranked by the age of consent. There are actually countries that have 12 and 13 and 14 as age of sexual consent. I think that's really scary. And these are countries like Italy, Denmark, and Japan.
Wow. Those are not the countries I thought you were going to mention. Where
It's Italy, Sweden, and Japan.
That's really interesting. So yeah, as far as I don't really know that I have. I know that I do have something to add. I'm just going to come out and say it. This whole topic confuses me because my thing is, and I brought this up yesterday on our broadcast yesterday, which is that. When every summer it seems like I end up seeing stuff on my social media feeds about like, oh, here's a picture of a 3-year-old girl in a bikini, and like, is this too sexy for a 3-year-old to wear? Like, a 3-year-old is not sexy. Why are we sexualizing children? I don't know if the 14 and the 16-year-old or however like low these low ages of consent are. I don't know if those are still like old laws. I'll just tell you, like here in Arizona, my state, we were a cowboy state for many years, and there's still laws on the books about like where to tie your horse up. Nobody runs through the city on a horse. Like so sometimes I just don't know that the laws have necessarily caught up. I don't know why that is. I'm just going to say that when we take from a psychological perspective, when we take and objectify kids, it makes it easier when we objectify children. Then it makes it easier to objectify women in the workplace. It makes it easier to justify and objectify many other things that we end up like tolerating in our life. I'm not going to get into this because there's so much debate on it, whether homosexuality, whether that is a choice, whether it's a choice, whether somebody's born that way. I personally feel that is somebody that is born that way. I believe that science indicates that and so forth, without getting into people's religious beliefs, because I know that that's problematic. However, when you take, I think that there is a very big difference between when you are sexualizing children and whether or not somebody wants to, there's a show on here in the U.S., and Andy Cohen, he's a pretty famous guy on the Bravo channel, and he simply just says that you dip your toe into the lady pond or the man pond. And I mean, I think that's very, very common. I think that we look at... regardless of whether somebody believes it's a choice or they're born that way, at the end of the day, that has nothing to do with children, and children should be off limits, period, end of discussion. And this is why we see that like we tolerate and justify like religious schools taking and mistreating, physically abusing children. Here in the U.S. as well. It's everywhere.
Okay, so you said sexualizing a 3-year-old child wearing a bikini. Now here's the thing. If I saw a picture of a 3-year-old in any situation, I cannot attach a sexual content to it. But there are people who can. Okay? No, Dennis, don't look at the comments. I've got a lot of lovers on today, so ignore them. I can see it in your face. Ignore them. Love is overflowing for me today. Screw that, man. But it's a serious one. Let's stay serious on this one. So see, rape, all right? Yeah. I have, over the years of my conversations with strangers over the internet, I've come across people, I've come across women who have who have rape fantasies. Now, I can't even, watching it on a movie, in a movie, there's a rape scene, the thought of rape is like, wow, I can't understand how that can actually excite any human being. But people have that. It does excite certain people. I'm going to quote a very interesting conversation. This is about 25 years ago, back in the times of, ICQ and IRC. And there was this girl I used to talk to from Texas, and she said, she confided in me one day, and she said, I'm really disturbed. I'm like, what's wrong? And she said, my neighbor got raped yesterday. And while the crime was happening, I could hear her screaming for help. Instead of calling 911, I was pleasuring myself at that thought.
Okay.
All right? Now that's really screwed up, right? For you and me. That's really, really, it's way off the chart of screw-ups. But you know what? Somebody did have that thought. So is it their crime to have that thought? Crime to have that thought, not act that thought, but is it their crime to have that thought? It's my question.
I don't believe that it is a crime to have the thought, because I think in the truth of the situation is that there is a very big difference between fantasy and reality. Very big difference between fantasy and reality. When you take the 50 Shades of Grey stuff and that BDSM stuff, I think people don't mind. They certainly don't want to be tied up and left for days. They want to be tied up and they want to like have something happen during that moment, but they also like want to know that they're safe. So in that world, this is why people have safe words and so forth. I think any time, I don't know how to even like comprehend if you know that that's happening to somebody else. I don't know, FQ. I think everybody isn't. We all have our own. We're all inclined to our own proclivities, if you will, and our own our own version of kink. However, what I am going to say is that when you do this to children, what two consenting adults do, I have no issue with at all. Two consenting adults, male, female, homosexual, heterosexual, trans, none of that matters to me, because to me, I look at people. However, it's just simply that at the end of the day, I'm going to make sure I say this correctly. Children are people, but they're not people that should be sexualized. Once you get, I don't have an age for that. That is up to the age of consent. FQ, I have you talk about the East. I had some friends here, and this was an ethical conversation that we ended up having in. It came up. I brought it to my graduate school. This is when I was still in school at university, and one of the things was somebody I knew. They said, "Hey, I go to Thailand. I like to travel to Thailand." And I'm like, "Why?" They said, "Well, because when I'm there, I get two 15-year-old girls to be my maids. They live with me." I'm like, "Dude, you're like 30." And his whole point was that, yeah, but it's not illegal there. So I think what we really have to do in some of this, FQ, is we have to check our own morals. Go ahead.
So here's my point. When I was saying earlier, the concept of rape, it just freaks me out. You said, somebody commented you should be sexualized. How can you sexualize a 3-year-old? Doesn't matter what you put on her. You cannot sexualize a 3-year-old. I can't even bloody sexualize a 14-year-old. I mean, when I was 17, maybe I could sexualize a 16-year-old, but once you pass a certain timeline, you cannot sexualize somebody that young. But then, the age of consent, now that's a tricky one. You go to Japan, it's 13. I mean, to Thailand, I'm not sure what Thailand is, but maybe it is 15, I'm not sure. Other countries, Sweden is like 14 or 15, something like that. So I think it's not about morality. It's about an individual's inclination. That's the bloody discussion. It's about individual's inclination.
But your inclinations, I think your inclinations are deeply tied to your values, your morals, and your belief systems, right? I mean, for me, I could not, just because it's legal somewhere, just because it's legal doesn't necessarily mean I would go somewhere and do it. I mean, listen, there's parts of the country parts of the world that I've traveled to that where opium dens are still happening. I don't go there either.
Bro, I have a question. When you say I would not do that even if it is legal, why? Why wouldn't you do it?
Because of what I already said. It comes down when our inclinations are always tied to our morals, our values, and our belief systems.
Not necessarily.
I was raised in the United States, and so listen, I'm just going to come out and say it. The pedophilia, from a psychology perspective, is simply that is an outlier. This isn't like a mainstream. I don't think anybody is trying to make this mainstream. I think what we're trying to say, we're trying to figure it out, because I think just too many people don't understand it. The reason I would not do that has nothing to do with whether it's legal or not. I was raised that an adult having sex with a child, meaning in my world, that's anybody under the age of 18 years old. Anybody That is wrong. It is illegal. You just don't do it. So I feel like I was programmed. I do. I feel like I was programmed, like most people, that that's off limits.
Yeah, see, moral ingraining could be overcome, could be taken over by natural inclination. Example, in my part of the world, having pork, drinking alcohol, and 50 other things are completely not illegal, but absolutely, the word we use is haram. It's like God will burn me in hell if I do any of those things.
Right. And I am familiar with haram because I've had some DMs that are referring to me and some of the things I have said as haram. So yes, I'm familiar with that term.
Yeah. Okay, now see, it's haram for them. What's haram for me is not haram for you, because I am of a certain faith. Now, even if I remove faith from the discussion, now in my upbringing, it is absolute no to lie. Mm-hmm. But in somebody else's upbringing, right in this very same culture, it is okay to do that. Now, this gentleman is just going on and just commenting filth, attacking other people. I'm just letting him on, leaving him here, so he's just exposing himself. So that's all right. Okay. Now the thing is, it's okay for him to do this. He's from the same environment, same upbringing. I'm sure if his father or mother saw this, they would probably die of shame. But he's doing it. So because his internal inclination is making it okay for him to behave in this way. Uh-huh. Yeah. It has nothing to do. It has to do with upbringing, environment, but your inclinations take over. Let's go back to homosexuality. In your part of the world, homosexuality was a no-no till recently. Yeah. Even in some states, I think even now, I'm not sure, some states still don't have it okay. And there were states which, went with it earlier and made it all right. So my point here is, people who were there, they were raised with the same Christian values as you. Mm-hmm. They were in the same environment where it said, no, it's not okay, yet they could not help their inclination. And at that point, that was a crime, yet they did it in hiding.
Sure.
During the prohibition, people drank. It was illegal to drink, but they drank. Right? So my point here is, I'm sort of agreeing with the lady who did this video. You cannot ostracize or stone or punish someone for thinking or having any thoughts. However, correct, if you act upon that thought, yeah, you burn in hell and you burn here as well, mate.
Listen, I completely agree. I think it's really the action. I don't know. I don't know whether it is it's an inclination, it's a sickness. I don't know. I think that's going to be one of those things that's debated for a long time. I just want to come out and say, just because people in our religious texts may have had wives or something else that were 9 or 14 or 12 years old, things were different. Things were different. We live in a different time. And so I think we have to make sure that we're, community standards also play a part of this. In my world, this is not acceptable. Other than it's really interesting because in many religious organizations, where do you hear the most sexual assault happening? Within inside of a religious organization. I mean, I literally just
about everywhere in the world, and it doesn't matter the religion. Yes, you're right.
I literally just had a meeting a few days ago, and it was regarding, I was doing some consulting with a church group, and one of the things that got brought up was that, hey, these people came in here, and now this group of people came, and we accepted them into our church, and now we're getting a lot of complaints. And what found out is that these people, this group of people, that's what they did. That's what they did. It was husband and wives, and this is what they did, is they went from church to church, and they got involved with the church community, but from the sole perspective, I mean, it looks like the sole perspective of nothing more than to take and lure young girls, and that's what they ended up doing. I mean, human trafficking over here in the United States. I mean, come on, we have Jeffrey Epstein that lived here. He's the biggest the biggest known sex trafficker in the world, and now we have his girlfriend locked up. So, fortunately, she's locked up, and hopefully, no more children get hurt where this is concerned. I mean, there's even there's speculation on whether or not grown billionaires were bidding on 13 and 14-year-old children. So I think that we need to stop saying like, oh, well, it was a 13-year-old girl as opposed to a boy. It doesn't matter. A child is a child is a child. And stop talking to me about, and I see all of this stuff over here in these comments about homosexuality being wrong, then tell your clerics to stop butt-fucking little boys. Period.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
So don't talk to me about homosexuality being wrong and then support religious personnel and just turn a blind eye to that. That's bullshit.
Okay, a friend of mine is joining in just now. She wants to make a comment, so we'll take that as well. Anybody who wants to make a comment by video, you're welcome to join in. Please message here, and I'll share the link. Dennis, I've shared the link actually. If anyone wants to come in, please do. Let's look at a few comments. Khushbu said, I'm reminded of how the vast majority of child sexual abuse is carried out with people known to the victim, including family members. Yes, that is unfortunate.
That's correct.
And that's a global problem. There you go. We're going to take a guest in. Hello, Cheyenne.
Assalamualaikum. How are you?
I'm sorry. Hi. Could you please turn your camera sideways if possible, so we can see you better? There you go. Go ahead, Cheyenne.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what would you like to add? Go ahead, Cheyenne.
So, what were you talking about?
Okay, we'll let you hang in there. We'll continue, and then you can make a comment in a bit. Khushbu says pedophilia is not the new norm. It will never be taught to our children or grandchildren. Pedophilia is a crime against innocent children. Right, Khushbu, I fully agree. Dennis, you want to take this one on?
No, I don't think she could have said that any better. Thank you, Khushbu. I really appreciate that. Yeah. You know what? It should not ever be considered a norm. It shouldn't be considered norm at all. In fact, I think we should be, continuing to push that age further and further, the age of consent. I mean, come on. I don't know. I live in an industrialized nation, so it's not like people in this country need a bunch of wives or anything for farming or household chores or any of these old reasons like 2,000 years ago that people took on multiple wives and so forth. Like, at some point we have to say, you know what, and I don't want to be like, some Whitney Houston song, but at some point we have to come out and say that children are the future, and if we want that, again, Faisal, we've talked about this a lot, is at some point you and I are going to be, going to age out and we're going to need others to take care of us. Do I really want a group, a whole generation of children that's been raped? Do I really want them taking care of me? I mean, if I was them, I would take it out on me, even whether I did it or not. I mean, I just think that that's human nature, and I think at some point we have to take and say that children are just off limits. There is a sanctity in youth, and we need to preserve it. I mean, if we're so worried about, like, in certain cultures, if we're so worried about a female's, virginity, then stop raping them. It's just really that simple. Like, if we're so worried about a female's virginity, stop touching them when they're children. I don't have much else to say.
Here's a comment. Manimi says,
the whole thing pisses me off.
Pedophilia is not normal. Stop discussing it to be normal. It should be avoided. A person having such thoughts should have a self-control and try to overcome them. It's cruel as well. Okay, Mani, obviously, you have to watch this from the beginning. And unfortunately, I've said this repeatedly. Please watch this on YouTube. So there you can rewind. Facebook does not let you rewind. We are not trying to justify it. We're not trying to make it okay. We are only talking about the situation where there is this whole internet discussion right now which says acting out pedophilia is a crime. No discussion. But having pedophilic thoughts, is that in someone's control or not? And this person has said, well, if you have such thoughts, you should have self-control to overcome them. I don't know, man. Dennis, you're the psychologist here. Can you really control your thoughts?
I'm not even going to address this, FQ. I cannot speak to Manny.
No, not these thoughts. Any thoughts, man. Screw this thought. Any thought. I know it's a tricky question.
No, you cannot.
But it's a tricky topic.
It's the same as, an easy example that I use. An easy example that I use is that I was taught a very specific version of heaven and hell. And in that, like my views on heaven and hell have changed. And I do not believe in the version of hell that I was taught. But when somebody cuts me off in traffic and I do, hey, where do I tell him to go? I tell him to go to hell. Right? So it is simply that these thoughts in many cases are automatic. We have to train ourselves. We have to program ourselves. And so, whether or not you have a thought, I have lots of thoughts that I don't necessarily put value on or even give validity to. They're just crazy thoughts. But I'm just going to come out and say, man, this guy, Manny Me, stop discussing it like it's normal. He came into the conversation very early. He's just being a jerk. So, like, if you're that basic, Manny, like just go away. Like, for real. Like, you're obviously not mature enough to handle this conversation because it needs to be discussed. It needs to be discussed so that we end up taking and we eliminate this behavior. Stop raping kids. It's not normal.
Not talking about shit doesn't make shit go away, man. You got to talk about it. Okay, so Cheyenne, now do you understand what we're talking about? We're talking about pedophilia and a lot of cases in Pakistan as well where young children are used for sex videos. They're raped. They're kept as boys. We know about it. So we're trying to figure out. Not trying to figure out, just comment on the fact that somebody commented and said that pedophilic thoughts are not in their control. Of course, acting out in those thoughts is a massive crime. Please go ahead.
Well, actually, there are so many things which are not in your control. It's not only pedophilia. There's so many things that your thoughts are not in your control, and probably that's why we live now in a world which has laws, regulations, and as you said, religion, which tells you this is right, this is wrong, you go to hell. But the point is, like, you cannot control your thoughts. You might want everything. You might want the next door neighbor's car, and you want to, steal it, and you have some guns with you, and you'd like to have it and take them. So you really can't control thoughts. It's the society which tells you what is right and what is wrong, because you cannot infringe on another human being's rights, and every child has a right to be respected, not touched, not raped, because pedophilia is definitely without consent. So you might you might groom a child into feeling that, slowly that, okay, fine. But the point is that it is wrong. So whatever thoughts you have in your mind, there are many, many thoughts that you can have, but there is a right and there is a wrong.
Okay, that's an interesting point you made, and I just realized why there's age of consent different in different countries, because in different cultures, people grow up differently, and the legislators in some cultures can think our children are mature enough at 13, like Angola is 12, and I can understand, the kind of, Indonesia I think is 14, something like that. So my point here is that some cultures give that exposure to their children, and they may feel, they may feel that their 13-year-old or is equivalent to the American 18-year-old in the maturity to decide whether they want consensual sex or not. Dennis, does that make sense over there?
Yeah, I agree with what Cheyenne has said. Is that the only exception I'm going to make is that when I see somebody's car, like my neighbor's car, and it might be a really nice car, and I might be able to go, oh wow, I really like that car. I'm just simply saying it is not a thought process in my head to steal that car. Oh, I'm going to have to figure out a way to steal that car. Like I don't understand taking in. I don't think that crime is normal. I don't think that's why it's called that. We have said, like, as a society, this is what we have said is acceptable, not acceptable. As far as listen, I think we all have an ability to look at the world from a very centric perspective wherever we come from. I mean, I absolutely bring an Americocentric perspective into things. So for me, I mean, listen, man, we're in a situation, we've talked about this stuff before, but we're at, like, here, you know as well as I do, 18 years old, there's a good chance your parents are going to say, hey, it's time for you to go. Whereas, like, in your country, like, it's not really supposed to be, like, on your own, right? I mean, we've talked about this. So I think, though, that, like, we have seen a shift in the United States to where people, kids, they can't afford to move out. So there's a lot of people like 30 and under that are still living at home. So I think as we see society changing, I think we need to like change our community standards and rules. I wanted to look at one comment from our good friend Irfan. Underage sex is wrong. That should be not even debate. Agreed. Thank you. Age of consent. Sure, absolutely, because you're right. In some places, it is 14 to 15. And like the only ones I'll just come out and say my understanding of the 14 to 15-year-olds that are still being married off in certain states. It's all based in the religious right wing. I mean, it just is. So like it is religious people continuing to say that it is their right. And that God took in and created this stand. I don't understand the whole argument. It's all nonsense to me. And like at the end of the day, let people decide when they want to get married, as opposed because then they have a say in it. I don't know. I don't know that I really have a lot more to say to this. It's a really interesting topic for me. As far as trying to figure out a way to normalize it, I don't know. I don't know that this is a topic that I want to empathize with or even figure out how to normalize for myself. I don't know that I want to understand it. There's my bias in this, and I'm just being authentic and honest.
Absolutely, man. Okay, are there any other... Okay, who said pedophilia is the worst thing in the world, nothing comes close. Imagine exploiting, pleasuring yourself by taking away a child's innocence. Evil isn't even enough to describe it. Whether it's priest, celebrity, or an average person, these animals will answer to God one day. Yeah? Okay?
Kushbo, yeah.
This is not very...
Yeah, Cheyenne, you were saying something? Asad Khan, thank you very much.
Can you hear me?
Gee, we can now. Go on. Can't hear you, I guess.
Sorry, it just sort of is, yeah, it's like coming and going. The voice, actually, it's like cutting out.
Okay, Rafia says, I have thoughts about punching a certain someone, but doesn't mean I will do it. True, but yeah.
Rafia, yes, you will.
If we know you, yeah, you will.
Yeah, yes, you will, you silly. And you probably should. You probably should.
Okay, Farhan says pedophilia without consent, this is rubbish. Pedophilia is wrong, period. Well, you see, Farhan, I guess you just join in. The discussion is, yes, pedophilia is wrong. Acting out on that is wrong. But then, you know what? Japan has age of consent is 13. That would be considered pedophilia. I think that's pedophilia. I think the Japs are really sexually screwed up, man. And I think 13 is really, really, what the F? So the thing is, it sort of becomes relative. That's the point. Dennis, you want to say something about this, man?
No, I mean, I think he's completely correct. Pedophilia, it has nothing to do with consent. A child can't give consent. That's why it's called rape. It is wrong. It is wrong, period. I mean, acting on it, listen, I don't know. I mean, I think we're really just trying to, I think we're all just trying to kind of make sense of this, because I think most of us even engaged in this conversation at all are simply just like, man, this just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I would venture to say that many people watching this and are contributing, many people that are watching this and contributing, I would say that there's a good likelihood, just because when you look at the percentages of sexual misconduct towards children, it's very, very high. So a lot of times
that's a scary part, man. That's a scary part.
In many ways, this just becomes like an academic debate. And so I until we take and respect children, and we take and care for them, and we protect them, and we call people out for this type of bad behavior, I don't think that we can expect children to grow up and want to take care of us. I don't think that that's the way that we set this generation up for success. If many of us, myself included, were touched inappropriately as kids, then you know what? We have an obligation to stop that shit right now and stop passing it on. If it was done to you, it doesn't make it right. It doesn't, stop it. Just stop it. You taking it out on somebody else is not justified in any way, shape, or form. You are a criminal.
That's a shit excuse for criminal behavior. I mean,
absolutely.
The fact that you were maltreated as a child gives you more of a responsibility to make sure it doesn't happen to somebody else. It 100%. Does not justify you fucking going out and doing it to somebody else. It makes you responsible for putting a stop to it, because you should bloody know how it feels, man.
You're correct.
If you think that makes it okay to do it to somebody else, you're screwed up. You're just a pervert using that as a lame excuse. Now, in conclusion, before we leave, please watch this video in totality. Don't pick this in the middle, because you might take things out of context and that would be just completely wrong. In conclusion, I would like to say at least pedophilia is just screwed up, cannot be justified. And even if you're having those thoughts, I would really worry about you. Only because of the age of consent. Now, age of consent is relative to cultures. Yes, I understand. But I think even in the most bizarre of most basic of cultures, a 13, 14, 15-year-old may today think that he or she is fit to make the decision, but as Khushbu said a little while ago, when they grow up, they will realize it was a mistake. So do not put the responsibility of such a huge decision on a child. Putting the responsibility of taking this decision on a 13-year-old is screwed up. Also, when we talk about 14, 15-year-old marriages in the US, there is a system to that madness. Parental consent is involved. You give guardianship. It is not just, get married to a 50-year-old and do whatever.
It is not common.
It is not common.
All.
Yes, but it also, there is a law about it. It's not like it's okay to marry. No, it's not okay. You give guardianship of that child. You do acknowledge that he or she is a child, and the guardianship is being transferred to somebody else. It is not the way you would see it in many other cultures, where it's okay to get married to a 9-year-old or a 10 or 12-year-old. Now, again, 200 years ago, maybe it was okay, because you know what? Back then, before the industrialization of society, women would have had 4 children by the time they were 16.
Exactly.
Okay, there were warriors who were 17 years old. There were kings who were 16 years old. Because you know what? They didn't have to go to university to get a bloody degree in electrical engineering. When they were 4 years old, they were wielding a sword. They were fighting. There was warfare. They knew, they were trained for that. That culture was built for that. But in today's industrialized world, it doesn't work that way. What was okay then is not necessarily okay for a child today. So you cannot, in conclusion, put the responsibility of that decision on a child. Dennis, your conclusion, then we'll say good night.
Yeah, all I'm going to say is, I just want to look at this comment, every bad work initiated from the USA. So I'm not sure where you're from, Mr. Ahmed. However, I can tell you my country's probably not nearly as old as yours, so maybe it's in the reverse. And if that's the case, maybe you guys should stop listening to what the US has to say. I know I have. So give that some thought.
Shine, do you have a closing comment, Shine? So we'll say good night. No, I think she can't hear us. All right, man. Dennis, are we done?
Thank you so much. I appreciate everybody's respect and respect towards this subject. So thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you again.
Wait,
tomorrow.
hang on.
Yeah.
Hang on. Check this out. Here. Yeah, see, but that was back in the day, not today.
Khushbu, much love to you and your family. Same to you, Amber.
Very good point, man. Very good. And also believe that giving a name to pedophilia as an E600 is like provoking them to commit this offense. Oh, beautiful. So then trying to have a control in the thoughts. Oh, wow.
And this is somebody, and Amber is somebody that works with children. She nails it.
You know what?
Amber, I wish you'd had more time to come on today.
This just nailed it, man. This comment nailed it.
Yep.
This comment completely nailed it. Yes, if we justify having those thoughts will become bloody action.
Absolutely.
Okay, this whole topic just got thrown out of the window. I stand corrected. No, it is not okay to have those thoughts.
Thank you, Amber. You're a
Thank
rock
you
star.
very much, Amber. You nailed it, man. Rock star. Well done.
Cool. Hey, well, thank you so much. Like I said, this is a sensitive topic, so I think I just appreciate everybody's. There's a few bad actors in the group here, but most everybody was very respectful. Thank you very much. Please give some deep thought to this, and really kind of wrestle with where you stand on this. And at the end of the day, please just take and do everything you can to protect children, honor them, and just show them love and support, because at some point they will either continue on this fucked up world that we're in right now, or they're going to be the ones to really take and make it better. So let's support them, so that we have an amazing society when I'm an old dude. That's what I have. Thank you. Thank you, Kushbu.
Good night.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Good night.